behind you.
Vice Mayor Strange, you'll address her properly.
You can kiss my foot.
Mr. Lincoln, you're out of order.
FBI, we are asking you to investigate this council. Please look into this council, how they award contracts, the bid process, how they use their positions to benefit their friends and themselves, how they use their positions to attack residents and critics and neighbors and business competition. FBI, will you please look into this?
And I welcome the FBI here. If you notice, Mr. Thompson, with his plea for the FBI and his watchdog group, this city runs the cleanest in this whole county. I guarantee
He
that.
was served a federal subpoena this
We
morning.
did receive a subpoena this morning, and we're going to cooperate 100% with the subpoena. And
Most of you who were involved up here, you gaslighted me. You tried to say I was crazy. And now we know that that's not true. And there's a lot of other issues I've been asking about as well. So this is the first time I've really addressed the mayhem in Panama City Beach that took place. It's obviously a very, very, very big deal. And locals are afraid something like this could happen again. And I guess there are planned invasions for this to happen again. So I want to go over a few things at a time like this. All right. First of all, what I think you'll notice is I don't have the answers. I don't even know all of the things that happened, right? You probably have watched the videos, and I haven't seen as many as you have. But I've just got some thoughts that I want to run by you, and I want to tell you some things that the local media will not tell you. All right. I also want to read your comments. I'll try to answer probably most of them after the show's over. This is a big one because everybody still has, frayed nerves about it all. Everybody's upset, rightfully. And the problem is tremendous. And the people who came here and caused the problem are getting more violent. They're ramping up their, F Panama City Beach stuff. I'm going to show you the flyer of the event. I'm going to show you quite a few things tonight and go over quite a few things. And obviously, locals are angry, locals were scared, and locals are frustrated, right? And because of this, it's sort of like the fog of war. It's like the civilian version of the fog of war. I don't want to compare it to actually the fog of war, which I've never been in. And for those of you who have, I'm not making that comparison. But I'm saying that right now, nerves are frayed, there are knee-jerk reactions, and people are firing off angry posts on Facebook, understandably. But I want to say this. Facebook, whether it's in our personal lives or our political lives, Facebook, trust me on this, is not a diary, right? It's really, truly not a great place to vent. I know it can feel cathartic, but it really is not a great place to vent, especially in your personal life. But here as well, right? And here's really the double whammy of it all. Also, politicians and government officials are emotional right now. And they're likely to act in haste. And in anger, as a matter of fact. So one thing I've learned in my 54 years is that anger makes you stupid. Anger makes you stupid. So, but it's a valuable emotion, right? Here's probably the best I have for you of the night. It's okay to be angry But we have to make sure, don't we, that we're angry at the right people for the right reasons and in the right proportion, right? We should be angry at the right people for the right reasons and in the right proportion. Now, I've written notes tonight because I want to make sure I hit all of these points. Government officials are prone to act emotionally and in ways that are, one, too late, right? Government officials. Two, don't help. Or three, can actually make the problems worse. And they can make the problems worse, A, by punishing locals for the crimes that the criminals committed, and B, for passing knee-jerk ordinances that have unintended consequences. And that right now is what I am most worried about. So there have been press conferences, you know, and rightfully so. And you've seen the press conferences. You've got Police Chief J.R. Talamentes, Panama City Beach. You've got the Panama City Police Chief, who I have not met yet. You've got Sheriff Tommy Ford. You even have the FHP. And of course, you have the politicians, right? The politicians standing on their shoulders, on the shoulders of law enforcement and the first responders who just went through hell. And by the way, how grateful are we that there was not none of our police or first responders were injured. So many things could have, in these flashpoints, could have gone really terrible. We are a flashpoint away from situations that are really out of our control. So, and it's campaign season, no less, right? Add that to it all. So it's probably going to be knee-jerk reaction time, not just for us on Facebook, but also for politicians. There's a special meeting that's been called in Panama City Beach on Friday at 8 a.m. I believe it's at 8 a.m. Will you confirm that and put it in the comments? But so here we go. And I think we all should be a little worried that politicians might push for ordinances and rules and spending. I'm afraid they're going to push for more spending on things like law enforcement surveillance and things like this. But what's needed from our elected officials at a time like this, am I right, is prudence and wisdom. Prudence and wisdom. That's what's needed right now at a time like this. I don't know if you're familiar with the political maxim, but in politics, there is a saying, a famous saying, that we should never let a good crisis go to waste, right? People are scared, people are pissed, people are frustrated, and they're looking at us, right? Some of us are up for re-election. This is a time that we may be able to push for some extravagant spending, so we can say that, you know, we're not going to rest until we get all the resources we need, all that kind of stuff. This is a political opportunity, and there are special meetings being called, and politicians who are campaigning, and others who want who go to bed at night dreaming of more spending. Now, I want to tell you why this happened. Best I can tell, right? I really encourage everybody to do this. Approach this with a little humility, right? We don't know everything, and we should ask. But I'm going to tell you why I think this happened right after this.
Have you received a speeding ticket for which you want no points placed onto your driving record? I'm El Saulene, 850-215-0628. Let me help you.
It's a hot time in Florida, and my friend Ryan could make sure your air conditioning is running at peak efficiency. He could even install a new one, built to a higher standard, American standard. Find out more at PCAirrepair.com. mayhem.com.
All right. So let's first of all take a look at the event flyer. Here we go. So this is the flyer on a Facebook page, Prince Gamble's Facebook page. The event was marketed as Panamaniac 2020, the final invasion, right? And also Panama City Spring Break 2K22. Now, if you notice, there's let's read what he says. I think he says we're meeting at Vibes tomorrow, and so this would have been the day before. The biggest spring break party in the world, as it's marketed. Now, Vibes, you see that on the bottom? Vibes was featured on some of the flyers. So I believe they're a sponsor that pulled out of it at the last minute, I think. But certainly it's on there, and that's where they're meeting. So it's important to know that this was a big event. It was a final invasion, which I doubt it will be. And I believe local companies were buying sponsorships. All right, you see that? Now that's really interesting, and I'll tell you why that's interesting. Vibes is owned by the partner of this man, Arthur Cullen. Arthur Cullen is a partner with the owner of Vibes. They own the county press, the mugshot rag, and against all common sense, that was the meetup point. So Arthur Cullen, I do not believe, owns Vibes, but again, he's partners with the owner of Vibes, and together they own other things to include the county press. Now, who's Arthur Cullen? Arthur Cullen is the campaign manager and political operative and dumpster diver for many of our local politicians, to include these guys. All the ones that you're seeing in the press conferences. People like Mayor Mark Sheldon, people like Commissioner Griff Griffiths, County Commissioner Robert Carroll, Panama City Beach Vice Mayor Jeff McConnell, and Councilman Paul Casto. The two on the left, Casto and McConnell, are running for re-election. Arthur Cullen is their campaign manager. Last I checked, McConnell had given Cullen $1,000 from the campaign. And Paul Casto, down there on the bottom left, he's given Arthur Cullen $4,000. Okay? Now, it strains credulity for me to believe that these politicians were not aware of this event that was coming. In fact, I know they were. And it's, well, let's get back to Arthur Cullen and his business partner, the owner of Vibes, right? The meetup point for the event. Those two guys, Arthur Cullen and a few others, about a year and a half ago, they tried to create, 2 years ago, they tried to create a fake Facebook page. There was this shadow news called Panhandle Politics, all right? Well, we discovered that it was really Arthur Cullen, the publisher of the Mugshot Rag, who was pretending to write news articles that were slobbering all over his clients, these guys, right here, right? Well, I made a big deal about it, and it sort of fizzled out and went away, because once people found out that it wasn't news at all, but it was what's taking place across this entire country, is that you have PR firms posing as news. And in this case, it was particularly bad because they were doing it as shadow publishers. And they didn't want anybody to know who was running the Panhandle Politics page. But it was this guy, Arthur Cohen. So the biggest question for me at this point is why was the meetup place vibes? Did Arthur Cohen have anything to do with it? Was Arthur Cohen ever asked, hey, can you tell your business partner over the past couple of months while sponsorships were being bought by local businesses from the promoter of this event? Did anybody ever ask them, hey, you guys really, this is not the kind of thing, I mean, look up the name of the promoters. This is not the kind of thing we really want to bring here. So isn't it interesting that the ones posing now during the press conferences most probably were very aware of this event? And isn't it interesting that the guy in the top left, when we ran against each other 4 years ago, and Arthur Cohen accused me of wanting to bring back this kind of mayhem? I wanted no such thing. But I think they really don't mind. See what happens over time is the truth will have its day, right? Over time, as a matter of fact, I've heard it said time itself is an appellate judge. Think about that. So, if the politicians were aware, at least by association, then why were they okay with this? The very ones standing up now most prominently in the press conferences, who are pushing for big solutions that they themselves may have partly caused, at least remotely. Now, I don't know these answers, but I do know that we've got to ask the right questions, right? We've got to ask the right questions. One of my favorite ancient Chinese proverbs, and I only know about 4 of them, but one of my favorite ancient Chinese proverbs is the more beautiful answer to the more beautiful question. In other words, thinking itself is a series of question asking. And if we become good question askers in our own heads, we get better answers, right? We get better answers. Here's what I've learned about politics as I've studied it for the past quarter century. All right, I have a bachelor's degree in political science, but that's really not where I learned it. I learned it from all these books I've read. But I really learned it firsthand by attending these city council meetings over the past 7 years and seeing firsthand what I had read in these books. And one of the things that I've learned, and I learned this one mostly from Thomas Sowell, who is one of the most influential people in my life in terms of my philosophy and how I understand economics and government. It's important, it really is important to know. Who remembers when Ronald Reagan used to say, the most dangerous words in the English language are, I'm with the government and I'm here to help, right? Well, that's because government doesn't really have solutions. As a matter of fact, in our own lives, what we really have more than anything else are trade-offs. So when you begin to think about public policy, if instead of asking what can the government do to solve the problem, what solutions will our leaders bring us, it might be better to ask questions like this. What trade-offs are we willing to have? What trade-offs are appropriate and constitutional? These are the right questions to ask, not questions like, what can we buy with government funding? What tools do we need? I would argue they already have the laws in place and they already have the tools they need. As a matter of fact, the sheriff's office on Saturday said so, that they've got the new tools that they need. So they've got them. Panama City Beach Police Chief J.R. Talamentes, I think, has been, from what I've seen, the most realistic, right? He's been the most realistic because he said, look, we can't stop people from coming here. It's America, right? But what we can do is say, if you break the law, we will arrest you. And then we need, he doesn't say it, the next part, I do. Then we need the state attorney, Larry Bassford, to prosecute as best he can. All right. Now, I want to tell you what to watch for, all right, as this continues. This week is a very big week. When we get back, I'm going to tell you what to watch for, who benefits the most, and who deserves thanks, and for us to remember who took the brunt of this right after this.
You want to look good? You want to feel good? Little John's Big and Tall is where it's at. Right across the street from Sky's Pizza Pie, 5700 North Davis Highway. You can find out more online at littlejohnsbigandtall.com. He's also a member. Don't let back pain and neck pain get you down. Find relief at Brown Chiropractic Center on St. Andrews Boulevard in Panama City. Dr. Sherry Brown helps people heal naturally with chiropractic adjustments and deep tissue massage. Call 769-3777.
So again, the city of Panama City Beach has an emergency meeting scheduled for Friday. I think it's at 8 a.m. I hope everybody shows up. And I am not, and you haven't seen me commenting on this stuff. And it's because I'm not going to have knee-jerk reactions and make knee-jerk assertions. And I would encourage you not to do it either. Again, Facebook is not a diary. It's not a place to vent and to feel cathartic after you vent. Remember what I said earlier. Anger makes you stupid. But it's okay to be angry, right? As long as we're angry at the right people, for the right reasons, and in the right proportion. That is so important of a lesson that we should remember. Now, I'm not going to make knee-jerk reactions about this yet or ever. I'm going to continue to learn and be curious. All right. And I hope the politicians also don't make knee-jerk reactions and pass restrictive ordinances that hurt locals, that are too late, and that have unintended consequences. So when the meeting comes on Friday, here's what I hope you'll watch for. Fear-mongering, political theater. I anticipate a lot of fear-mongering about the next mayhem-ridden event that invades Panama City Beach. Remember, when they're talking in Panama City Beach, remember, these are the very politicians who are under FBI subpoena issued in 2020 because a grand jury found probable cause that they're involved in public corruption. And remember that the same politicians on Friday in Panama City Beach are also, their campaign manager is Arthur Cohen, whose business partner owns Vibes, which again, you see on the flyers as the meetup point. You want me to show you one more time? If you haven't, these are all over the place. You can still see them. This is what it looks like. And if you look at the bottom there, you see Vibes, and that is again and that it says the meeting up at Vibes. And my understanding is that several businesses sponsored this event. And it is very interesting to me, the relationship that Arthur Cohen has, here he is, with the owner of Vibes. They're business partners. They both own the county press and other businesses as well. And Arthur Cohen, again, is the campaign manager for the very politicians you see standing up there making these comments in the press conferences and that are calling these meetings, and they're going to promise solutions to keep you safe. You're especially going to hear that from Mayor Mark Sheldon. All right, I'm going to bite my tongue and move on just a little bit. Watch closely for their blame shifting. Okay? Very much like being in a toxic relationship. This council, think about Jeff McConnell, the vice mayor, the one who felt threatened. Do you think he has a sense of proportion? When I walked up to give a postcard to the mayor and he screamed, "I feel threatened, stand back, I feel threatened." who's a laughingstock. This is somebody who is campaigning. Watch Mark Sheldon, because he can't help himself. But watch Jeff McConnell and Paul Casto. They're in campaign mode. The election is in 4 weeks. They're going to promise solutions. But these guys, Paul Casto can't even put it is so important, and he should know better, and he paid his campaign manager, Arthur Cohen, $4,000 in this campaign to not have something as simple and important as the campaign financial disclosure paid for by Paul Casto campaign in his political advertising is unacceptable. For him to commit for Casto to commit perjury in his form to run for office by saying that he's financially unable to pay the filing fee to run for office when he gets a retirement from the city of more than $100,000. And then when I called him out on that, he went and amended the form. These are the people who are going to promise to keep you safe and are going to push for very restrictive policies that could have unintended consequences, make things worse. These are the very people who are going to promise to keep you safe and are going to fear. Watch closely for this and for their attempt to never let a good crisis go to waste. So who benefits from this and who loses from this? Well, the only people I can see that can benefit is local government. They can use this crisis to push for more spending, for more tools. They can use this crisis to push for more ordinances that will really hurt locals that are too late. I think they already have the laws in place that they need. But you can count on them trying to benefit as they appropriate the accolades and the kudos that belong to law enforcement and to the first responders. And also, by the way, to the incredible dispatchers. Think about those dispatchers sitting in those rooms while they're getting these frantic calls. These people have nerves of steel. These people are making sure they're sorting out these frantic calls from police and from the people, and they're making sure that the correct resources get to the police, and they're making sure that the emergency services are getting to the people in need. I just don't think that the police dispatchers get the credit they deserve. They're like the unsung heroes. Obviously, law enforcement, the police and the sheriff's office and the first responders, you guys did a hell of a job. A hell of a job. I can only imagine the things that you saw and the things that you have to do throughout your careers. And I'm grateful that you do it and that we don't have to do that. But let's also, I think, remember the businesses, the business owners and the workers that were hit so hard over this weekend. I mean, they don't deserve any of this pain that this ordeal has caused. We really need to remember the business owners and the workers. Let's remember the terrified residents and tourists who are blindsided by the mayhem and the flash mobs. I'm sure you know about that stuff. Can you imagine being in Walmart when that happened? And you know who else I remember are the high school students who had prom and whose prom was ruined, really. I mean, I hope they still had fun. I hope they still had a good time, but it was kind of ruined, you know? And they're watching grown-ups behave like this. The things they've seen over the past 3 or 4 years, the games that they've missed, the school that they've missed, everything, their homes that were destroyed. And now they see this stuff, and now they can't, they're like, Dad, why is gas $4 now? $4 a gallon. So I just want to remember them. And here's what else I would like to do. I would like to make a few demands, right? I want to make a few demands. I want to demand that our local media report the truth and don't just operate as PR firms for the local politicians who spend so much money on advertising. on advertising for tourism and all of that. They get a ton of money. They're public-private partners now, which is anything but news. Local news outlets report the truth. Get to the bottom of it. Don't collude. Don't collude with local government, with local politicians, to not let a good crisis go to waste. Do your job. Be proud of your craft. All right, finally, let's demand that State Attorney Larry Bassford prosecute appropriately, and not just because there's a ton of them. There's more than 100 people were charged. State Attorney Bassford. They've done their part. Now it's passed through the clerk of the court, and it's up to you. And then finally, let's demand that our local politicians, who also may have had a hand in this, may have, even if it's remotely, through their campaign manager and his association. Let's demand that they show prudence, that they show wisdom, and they don't try to capitalize on it at these upcoming emergency meetings. All right, I see a ton of comments. I'm not going to be able to get to them right now. This was my first reaction to the mayhem in Panama City Beach. I hope that I was able to impart something to your way of looking at it, if only humility. Let's remember, if we're going to be angry, we should be angry at the right people, for the right reasons, and in the right proportion. All right, the reason I can tell you these things, of course, is because I don't work for those stations. I rely on sponsors, I rely on crowdfunding, and one way, if you're interested to support my efforts, is right here, through Patreon. It's kind of like a tip. It's crowdfunding. It's like a monthly tip, patreon.com/Bernie Thompson, and you can become a patron for as little as $5 a month if you want to support my work. It's anonymous. Nobody will know it's you. It's easy, and you can quit at any time. Patreon.com/Bernie Thompson. And of course, as always, I want to thank this sponsor here, the Unknown Patriot. Thank you for what you do to help me get the word out and to continue to be a watchdog here in Bay County, and to do my very best to get the truth out as best I can find it. If you know something that I should know about this, here's how you can get it to me, okay? You can get it to me by sending it right there. No, that's not the best place to send it. You can send it there, Bernie@BernieThompson.com. But I do have another email, and I'll tell it to you. Thought I had it on here. Oh, might be right here. This is the best place to email me. BernieThompson@ProtonMail.com. If you know something, if you have documents, if you have flyers, if you have screenshots, or you just want to give me a tip, that's where to do it, and all tips are confidential. I have journalistic privilege. I don't have to tell. BernieThompson@ProtonMail.com. That's where you can send your tips. Thank you so much for being with me. I'm going to break out of here, and I will see you soon.